right, as we preview a fun weekend on paper in Minnesota sports, and we have a coach that was fired today. We got all sorts of things going on. Pat, tell us before we dive in here about your friends, the Valley Auto Group.
Valley Auto Group, Jim Paul, Brett Paul, the whole crew out there, Apple Valley and Hastings, Buick, GMC. I have bought at least my last 5 new cars from Jim Paul's Valley Group. And also sent friends, bought a truck for a relative out there, bought my used car that I took to Florida, that wonderful Toyota convertible that I had down in Florida that I had for years. And it's just real easy to make a deal with those fellas. They're not going to try to, do any, they don't give you the old soft shoe, as they say. They give you a good price and they give you great service and great automobiles. And as I've been saying, I'm going to have to get a new car too, because I'm driving the convertible now that I got out there, the 2019 convertible. But my granddaughter has told me that she is taking over the convertible in about a year.
Yeah, you can't fight that. Yeah.
So then I'm going to have to. Then I'll go make another nice deal with Brett and Jim Paul out at Valley Group GMC dealers. Go out there. Yeah, you can get it done in a day, in an hour with these fellas, because these people out there, because you know you're going to get a good deal and a good car and good service, and you can call up and say, okay, I'm having this little problem, and they'll get it fixed almost immediately. So Jim Paul and Brett Paul, Valley Group GMC dealers. There's one in Apple Valley right out the end of Cedar Road there, Cedar Avenue there, where I go. There's also one in Hastings. So check these guys out. They're straight shooters.
All right. Hey, let's go Vikings-Chiefs here first. So do you have any sort of vibe of optimism surrounding this game, Pat?
Yeah, I think they'll show up and play their best game of the year, don't you? It's a Sunday night game. I heard somebody breaking down the Chiefs yesterday in the local market, and nobody mentioned the fact that, except for Kelsey, he's got the worst collection of receivers in the NFL. You got 3. His best receiver would be the 4th or 5th receiver that Kirk Cousins is throwing to. You give Patrick Mahomes, Jefferson, and the new kid, and even Osborne, and they'd make you that trade and throw out Jefferson. They'd still make you the trade. We saw him on opening night when they got beat. He had the biggest collection of clowns out there running around, and then his big receivers, the guy from Green Bay. Who only drops about half of them, right? He drove Aaron Rodgers crazy. This guy has got the ability to have driven 2 of the greatest quarterbacks of all time nuts. Aaron Rodgers and now Patrick Mahomes, who is probably the greatest quarterback of all time. Is he the greatest quarterback of all time?
In a 6 years, it's the best 6 years. It's the best 6 years with quarterback play we've ever seen, right?
Yeah. Now they're playing more games, 17 games instead of 14 like they used to play, and then 16. But I think he's the best ever. And you know what they did? They didn't play him the first year. They didn't have Bryce Young out there looking like a jackass. Instead, they let somebody else play the first year, and that helped him a lot. And I think he's got probably the greatest quarterback guru of all time in Andy Reid, at least the great play caller, and a fantastic relationship between him and Mahomes. I mean, he gives Mahomes all the freedom, and I think it's like Andy has 2 plays for him every week that gets everybody fired up. Okay, that one, something that high school coaches used to draw in the dirt or something. But yeah, it'll be a good game. I don't think Flores, and I've said this, I don't think you can go at him with 8 guys like you tried to do with you successfully did with Bryce Young last week, because he'll just step away from him and make some plays. You can blitz him some, but you can't blitz him like you did last week. But I think it'll be I think the Vikings will score in the high 20s. Is that going to be enough? That could be enough. I don't. They could beat them. I think they'll probably play their best game of the year.
If they win, they're probably not winning like 21-17. You know, they're going to have to win a shootout, right?
No, yeah, they are, and they're going to make. Looks like they're going to change both guards, huh? They're going to this week. The Cleveland too. Is that they were?
Are they going to move? Are they going to move Cleveland to right and Reisner?
No, it sounded like what's the other guy? Brandale, the guy they had last year.
No. I think Blake Brandel. He was throwing his name in when talking about Reisner. A couple of days ago. I think that was coach speak for. I'm going to avoid talking about one player.
Cleveland, though, was he a little banged up this week or something? Because they had those two guys with the first team for a practice at least. I don't know what was going on, but they're gonna change for sure. They're gonna change Reisner. Although, did I see some quotes that they felt Ed Ingram actually had a very good game last week?
He wasn't terrible. Yeah, he's been pretty good as a run blocker too. He's been better.
Yeah.
Bradbury will be back this week too, most likely. He was a full participant, so sounds like he'll be back under center for the Vikes too.
Yeah, well, it'll be a fun night. The Twins are opening up Target Field to let the fans in, which I think is I don't think it's a perfectly timed day to do that on Sunday. Certainly Saturday it will be interesting to see if anybody shows up, but you're also going against the Gophers in Michigan. And then this is a bad weekend to say, our team is so damn popular that we got to have the Target Field open to have people looking at it on the big screen. I think most people are going to stay home and watch the Twins and then watch a football game afterwards. And maybe if it's the 8th inning and the football game starting, they'll check back in with you and go to the football game. So it's still deep in their heart. They're more concerned about the Vikings, and there'll be a lot of people fired up about Gophers, Michigan.
But if you're the Twins and you can get 3,000, 5,000 people in buying some, I'm assuming that we're going to have some concessions open, right? We can buy a couple beers.
I think if you're going to invite the people in, you should say, and we're going to have since we haven't won a playoff series since 2002, and we just did, we're going to have 2002 concession prices.
Yes.
Why don't they do that? If they do that, then maybe they'll get some people there. In other words, we're going to charge you $7 for a beer, and we're going to have some vendors walking through the stands instead of $14 for a beer. Let me be your marketer. We can get some people there.
Love this.
1991 beer, Patrick. Those prices at the Metrodome, real deal there.
We can't go that far, but we can go back to 2002. Of course, if you only had the 2002 food options, it'd be a little reduced too. So.
Is Wally the beer man still alive?
I think Wally's still alive, but I don't think
let's have Wally the beer man go. I
mean, where did he go and work?
Didn't he like give a beer to a youngster one time?
He'd be at Saints games, and he made a bunch of promotional appearances. But Wally's not a young man anymore, so I don't know if he. I don't know what though.
You know what? That poor guy. He's going through the stands for how many years? And some youngster snooker him, and all of a sudden he's persona non grata at Target Field.
Never. That was one of the funniest stories ever when they got suspended for 2 weeks because he sold to they had some jackass cop in there trying to find out, undercover guy trying to find out if they could buy a beer from the vendor underage. And Wally says he has never knowingly sold, and only when he saw the ID. And I must add 50 people emailed me. He said, "Yeah, I was 16. I bought my first beer from Wally."
Jeez, poor Wally.
And vendors they're busy. They can't be expected to check IDs and stuff. But
no,
I really think that is. I wonder, are we one of the few clubs that doesn't use vendors anymore, or has that become become the norm?
COVID kind of wiped it.
Yep, they don't go up and down steps anymore. That hasn't happened in 2021 at all.
Yeah,
no, but like the Braves or the Cubs.
I know at a Twins game, I just wondered if it's that way nationally.
I was at the Twins Reds game at the Great American Ballpark. They did not. That was like a month ago. They did not have. So that's
they didn't have vendors either.
No.
But
think about now, like, 20, 30, 40 years ago, we didn't think anything of it. But now it's kind of weird that if you're Wally the Beer Man, you come down and there's someone 10 seats in the middle that says, "I want a beer," right?
Yes.
And then you pass your cash down.
Wasn't weird. It was
And then they
great.
pass the beer down. It's like you
And
could be vouching for a 12-year-old, Yeah, just pass it down.
They had to pour them. Yeah, it was a great tradition, though.
Well,
We always, you know what it did? It brought us together. It was a, we were, black, white, Asian. We were all together passing the beer
all
back
touching the same cup. Yes, as it goes down.
Do you guys recall, though, in the Metrodome days, it was those disgusting little cups with cellophane on top of the beer.
Oh, yeah.
Like we have come so far. Like in the 70s, it was bottles of beer poured into cups, which was awesome.
Yes.
The Metrodome was literally a tray full of warm beers.
Yes.
With cellophane on the top of them.
And humping those steps at the Metrodome was a pain. If you were upstairs humping those steps at the Metrodome, man, you were in trouble.
With the beer too, think about how heavy the beer. If you're the popcorn guy, it's not that heavy, right? But if you're the beer guy, that big metal hot dog canister,
the beer guys
too.
made the money because if you're selling mom and dad and a kid a Coke and a popcorn, they're going to give you a quarter. If it goes down the beer and the beer's $17 for 2 beers or 3 beers or whatever it is, they're going to say give you 20 and keep the change, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the tipping was a lot better. But yeah, it's how many people do we have? How many recorded instances of people dying because of germs they picked up at a ball game? How the hell, I think it probably made our systems more immune to, it probably made our systems more immune to germs too.
It did. Yeah. I feel like too, if you're one of those vendors, I'm just putting my my entrepreneur hat on here. It'd be pretty easy to skim money, right? So I sold a bunch of beers. Here's a pile of cash. I keep 10%. Right. No one knows,
Especially back in the day when Jimmy Robertson was running the opera. Keep it.
That looks good.
Yeah, right. But bring us him and Smokey T-Wall probably had pretty good, that crew of concession people that they had back in the old ballpark was incredible.
Yeah.
But they had 5 products too, so they didn't have to keep track of a lot of stuff,
Right. I did do a Google search for Wally the Beer Man here, and the last big thing that pops up is from February 3rd, 2020, so before the pandemic. Okay. Wally the Beer Man hosts a pre-Super Bowl party, and it's a picture of Wally wearing a Wally the Beer Man hat, eating a Dome Dog, and holding a beer and Cracker Jacks at some Super Bowl party.
Really good. Yeah. Well, Wally made a lot of appearances like that after he, I don't think he. Did he ever come back from his suspension?
No. He was at Sneaky Pete's for
a
long time.
Yeah.
He was the main attraction at a Sneaky Pete's if you wanted to go.
Okay. Had a lot more fun than the ballpark.
Yeah. Yes. Well, anyway, we missed the vendors. That's for damn sure.
Yeah. So all right. Well, what's going to happen? Are they going to beat the Astros?
Boy, one thing I didn't realize is Michael Brantley's back. He played some at the end of the season. He's going to hit about 7th for him. That lineup is, McCormick's ended up you kind of saw him as an out earlier this year, and he's having a pretty good year. And it's a pretty good lineup right now if they're healthy. So it's not going to be, you're not going to have Biggio hitting 4th. That's in the lineup like they had here. It's a pretty good lineup. But, Verlander's starting Saturday. He don't scare you like he used to, even last year. Alvarez, you hope you get the bad Alvarez instead of the good one, because if he's throwing strikes, you're in trouble. But the other night I watched him, and he was all over the place and throwing, 25 pitches an inning. So it depends, but they're not unbeatable. I think, as you said, though, you just said that the Vikings aren't going to beat this team 21-17. They aren't going to beat this team 2-0 and 3-1. You're going to have to get 5 runs a game to beat them, and I don't know if they can or not. the bullpen they got a couple of hard throwers in front of Presley, but I'd take the Twins bullpen over their bullpen. But yeah, they're what 160 to win 100. Houston isn't 8-5 favorites.
I think so. Yeah.
They got a chance if they keep making plays in the field like they did. We got to get Reusse out of his slump, though. He hasn't had a hit since Tuesday. Come on, let's go here. But I know it'll be fun. It'll be good. I don't think. What time we kick it off Saturday? 3 something again?
Yeah,
3:45 on Saturday.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
And by the way, you can hear the game on 1500 ESPN radio. Yeah.
Okay.
Who's calling
ESPN.
for?
ESPN.
I'll get that for you, Judd. I'll get that
Okay,
for you.
I'd just like to know who's calling the game. I mean, that's what I like.
I'm not sure why you had to ask that specific of a question after I
that.
just promoted the game, but that's fine.
I was very, very curious.
Yeah. It's they have asked me to go to Target Field and talk to a few of the fans, and then maybe wander over to a bar or something, and then write some kind of a reaction thing. So poor old man has to go humping around downtown, but that's okay. It'll be
festive.
Yes, and hey, I just looked outside. Our poor Friday night high school football players, are they going to get wet again? It's raining again. What the hell?
It's raining,
last
chilly.
week
It's good
was
football weather. What do you mean?
Last week was an interesting Friday. Half these games ended up getting stopped at halftime at lightning and stuff. And I saw Cretan and Hastings finished at midnight. They had a 2-hour delay, and a bunch of them. So I don't know. We had that great drought. Now what's going on? We're getting too much rain.
Fall.
I like drought.
Change of seasons, Patrick.
Yeah.
Hey, but before you go, Dick Butkus died. Okay, so first of all, we are losing some of the greats in sports at a rapid rate now. But what do you recall about watching Butkus, who was, I think, a first-round pick in '65 by the Bears?
Well, you got him and Sayers back to back, right? And, one year and the other in the draft. That was pretty amazing. He was a monster. He was a Chicago boy too, right? Didn't he? I think he grew up in Chicago and went to Illinois. And I mean, look at him. It's Chicago. You look at him, and that's Chicago right there. It's their love for that guy. I mean, he could have been in the George Wendt skit on Saturday Night Live, and with the. In there talking with the boys. That's Chicago. I mean, the south side of Chicago, Rich Delmazic's bar, where you had to stick your head in the window to get in the place. They wanted to make sure you were out on the south side of Chicago, and they had to sit if they're going to let you in or not. And that was it. He was the south side of Chicago, but he was, in that style of football back then, when the middle linebacker just had that few yards to cover in the middle and stop. I mean, he was a monster. He was fantastic. There's no doubt about it. And he if you want a picture of the Chicago Bears of at least my youth and a lot of people's, it's just take a picture of Dick Butkus. That's it. He's they won a championship with Billy Wade as a quarterback. Billy Wade is Tanner Morgan just got signed by the Vikings to take some snaps or something. Tanner Morgan would have looked like the world looked like Mahomes in comparison to Billy Wade, but he won NFL title with that team by handing off, and just smacking the hell out of people and holding them down. And he was Chicago, that's for sure. A great player too.
Yeah, he was also, I feel like when NFL films really started picking up steam, he was one of the original figurehead players of NFL films, right?
The originator of that whole thing, the NFL films and everything, was The World of Sam Huff, which was it was the New York Giants version of Butkus.
Yeah.
The same guy. It could have been The World of Dick Butkus. And it would have been the same thing. But those were the linebackers of that day, Bill George and him, and just the guy in the middle that just, for the Vikings, it was Lonnie Warwick originally, and then Studwell, and Jeff Seaman. And Seaman was actually an athlete instead of just some brawler, growler who knocked the hell out of you. But he is the NFL of old, and I've been in a group when he was doing interviews. I never did a one-on-one with him, but he seemed to be.
He became a comedic actor after his career was over. He was on like sitcoms and Saturday morning shows, and he became this kind of soft figure on TV in the 90s.
Well, one of the great interviews I ever did, I've told you guys about it, was when I stopped to see the old man. George had been moved out. He wasn't running the team anymore. He owned it, but he wasn't running the team. And he still kept his little ticket office downtown on State Street upstairs. You walked up these steps, and he had his ticket guy in there, and he had like 200 customers from the old days would come every week and get their tickets from George for the game. And that was, they kept that office open. And he was this grumpy, ornery old guy. And the day I was with him, he was the greatest guy in the world. I was in there for 3 hours. He was padding around, bringing out albums and books and old photos, and talked to it. I'd flown in from Anaheim on a red eye, and I was damn near falling asleep talking to him. And I flew home that night and tried to write it Saturday morning, but God, it was I thought I'd be in and out, do it an hour. I was in there for 3 hours. He was great, but telling stories about all those guys,
Yeah.
And as a kid, before the NFL had their national TV packages, they had regional TV packages, and Sioux Falls, South Dakota, got Bears games. So we up here in the Twin Cities, they were watching the Packers, but we got the Bears games every week, with the boring Red Grange doing the play-by-play, and his boring George Connor as his color man, and the boring Bears. And it was the most black and white football team of all. It's black and white, and Papa Bear with his glasses snarling on the sidelines, and Butkus came along there during that era too. So,
well, what's amazing is, so you mentioned the championship they won in '63 with Wade as their quarterback. So Dick Butkus came around a year or two after that, and I didn't know this until I looked it up. Dick Butkus never played in a playoff game.
Really?
Never played in a playoff game. Yeah.
Well, how many years? He must have played 15, didn't he?
He played it. Well, so he retired when he was like 30, 31. So he played.
Really?
He played from 65 through 73 or 74. Okay. So he played a decade, and that was it. Huh. And they only had 2 seasons where they finished above 500, but they never won the division. Never made the playoffs with one of the greatest defensive players of all time.
Yeah. That is. I did not realize that he had never played in a playoff game, but. How about the Bears last night, by the way?
They're back.
They killed them.
Ron Rivera's done.
I know. Justin Fields look good. I didn't watch a lot of it.
That's 2 weeks where the Bears, if you take away, like the 3 touchdown blown lead against the Broncos, but they're actually coming to life a little bit here, just in time for the Vikings in their next game.
I was going to say, don't lose tonight, don't lose this weekend, Vikings, because those Bears will be snarling. They're gonna come back home, and they're gonna certainly have some ceremony honoring Butkus. And maybe Ditka to show up for it. And they're gonna be they looked pretty good last night. So in the bits and pieces I watched and the highlights I watched. So, and Fields. What happens if Fields turns out to be good? And they still got it. If they've still got one of the top 2-3 draft choices, they're gonna have to probably trade him, huh?
I think they'll probably, if they have a shot at Caleb Williams, I think they'll take him.
Move Fields then.
Yeah, they'll still take him. Well, yeah, I'll just have to sit home and try to think of my greatest interviews with Adrian Heath here. I think I was. I went to a 3 of his post game things a couple of years ago. I had no idea what the hell he was talking about. It was just, just this whole thing about, we didn't do this and we didn't do that, and it's gibberish. Soccer.
Yeah. Maybe that was the problem. Maybe the players are like, I don't know what he's saying. I have no idea. By the way, he's a friend of the show. A friend of the show.
He would rip his players, which I absolutely loved. Like that's the thing is, I love it when the coach rips his players.
Yeah, and they decided to lay down on him and get him fired. So but it's a different language, and I mean, man, he was who do they bring in? He basically was making most of the personnel decisions too, right? I mean, he was telling them who to get and everything.
Yeah, it's gonna be a tough one.
I wonder who makes that decision. Must go all the way to Bill McGuire, huh?
Yeah, and it's and to do it with 2 games left in the season in which you can still make the playoffs is very, very eyebrow raising. Very interesting.
Yes, desperate to win. What do they want? Home one or away one? Is that it? Or
yes, I believe that's the case.
Yeah. Well, what? Judd and I were talking last week. I was telling him, was anybody mad about this team playing like they are? I guess the management wants to say.
They were.
I guess the owner was.
Yeah.
You know what this is, Pat? This is a very Louis move, where the playoffs were around the corner, and he tried to spark the club by firing. I think he fired Henning with like 3 games left in the season.
He made himself the coach. Yes, yeah. Firing yourself in a soccer season with 2 games to go isn't quite as crazy as firing yourself in the hockey. I mean, firing a guy in the hockey season. I think it was 2. I think it was only 2 games left. Maybe it was 3. But he was trying to, Phil, he was trying to squeeze in the 16 teams out of 21 playoff scenario.
Because if you can just get in, hockey's random. So that's
right.
Yep.
16 out of 21 we were putting in the playoffs back then.
Amazing. Pat, we got to get going to our Purple Daily live stream here.
Right.
But enjoy your Minnesota sports weekend, and we'll see you on Monday.
One of the great weekends ever, right here in Minnesota sports.
Yep. All right, there it is. Reusse Unchained here on SKOR North, the SKOR North YouTube channel. See you guys.